Okay, so I get an obscene amount of questions about Eena's weapons. So I'm going to do a quick video today just because I put out the drawing of Eena here recently holding her sword. So uh, this is kind of everything of hers that I've made so far, and we'll talk about where the inspirations for them and everything came from, their uses, things like that. So top one is a direct parallel to something that actually existed during the height of the fur trade in the Americas. You would find piles and piles and piles and piles of skeletons from skinned animals. So there were bones everywhere. So this was done before that, but it became much more popular during this time. You can even go as far back as stories in the Bible of jawbones being used as clubs. So it's not new. It's just the most popular era for this was during the fur trade boom in the Americas. So they would take a jawbone of, say, a bison or a cow or a horse or whatever has a elongated jaw like this, and typically they would fashion this into a point. So that's what happens here with this particular version of it. And in this particular instance, these would be for penetrating through, something like the helmeted form of their hair in Ena's species. So that gets through that, but it also uses it as a deflecting type weapon, a parrying weapon, almost like you'd use a parrying dagger, a shield type thing, because it's very broad. You can use it as a club to incapacitate if you use the other side of it. So there's a lot of that. But another thing that hasn't been revealed in the story yet, but you'll see later on, is they will use these teeth to make a sound in their rituals where they will rub them together. So you can imagine hundreds and hundreds of them at a time doing that would make a very unsettling sound. So the next one is the sword, and this is modeled directly after a Filipino weapon called a barong. Now, this does have another mention in a story that's not a Worstverse story. We're in the woods somewhere, and part of that is because they tended to make their handles out of silver. So that kind of association there I wanted in that story. But with this, it is another derivation. This one is sharpened. So we have a cutting and stabbing weapon here, as opposed to a sharp tip force and blunt force trauma weapon. And these are, like I said, modeled after it. So we have a real barong here for comparison. Old Chris Cutlery combat barong. But yeah, they are short, and they were favored because they're easy to carry. These were very popular among the Moro tribes in the Philippines, which is very adjacent to modern day Indonesia, especially Sumatra, which is up in the kind of the top left hand corner of Indonesia. So the construction methods of these were very similar, more similar so in how they were made and designed to Sumatran Indonesian weapons than they were to more common Filipino weapons. So that's her sword. That's what you see whenever you hear mention her sword. And they use a fleshy type, sinewy material that takes on a very crimson color. I used a paracord and melting it to kind of simulate that with these. So that's her sword. Then next up we have her knife, and this would be more of a utility thing, what you would see her using to, cut materials, make fire, things like that. So very simple. This one's modeled after, is it here? Yeah, after a Bowie knife that I made some time ago. I just used this as a template, just laid it down, traced it, and made the bone knife after that. So that's our small knife. And then next is the kerambit type knife, which, like I said, since these are modeled after tribal weapons, I wanted to make something else that's very distinctly tribal, like a kerambit. So you can see that this still has the same jawbone texture, And with this one, I wanted to do something kind of tongue-in-cheek reference to a popular culture weapon. And in this case, it's modeled after not just a kerambit, but the Splinter Cell Blacklist kerambit. So I wanted to kind of do something very similar to that because this always looked very kind of animalistic and tribal to me. So I wanted to try that. So we have a bone-ish analog of that. And these are very aggressive. These get through fabric very well. They rend, they tear. They're a very dynamic weapon. And if you're as strong and fast and agile as someone like Eena, then they instantly become that much more terrifying. So these are Eena's weapons that she uses throughout the story. And that's where their inspiration came from. Oh, and we got a few little Milo and Tegan werewolf claws that I've got going out over here too. I forgot those were sitting on the table. Yeah, those were sitting over there too. So there you go, Eena's weapons.